If you thought last year's shortages were bad and the price increases were absurd, you'll probably be very upset to know that the situation is going to get a whole lot worse this year. Our global supply chains are broken, and there isn't a simple solution to fix it. When we break down the intricacy and complexity of this gigantic entity, we have four major components. We have producers that manufacture a product. That product is shipped somewhere, a supplier receives that product and distributes it for sale. And finally, a consumer buys it. That's how it would work in a perfect world scenario. But it is safe to say that the world is far from perfect, and with the ongoing and growing shortage of shipping containers, neither is the global supply chain. You have a supply chain that has been built on the premise of being lean and efficient, and that works great when things are operating smoothly, said Keely Croxton, a professor of logistics at Ohio State University. But as soon as there's a glitch in the supply chain, these lean supply chains become brittle and break. One of the biggest problems we had last year were the lack of enough containers in the right places and the excess of empty containers in the wrong places, which has exacerbated port congestion and delivery delays and contributed to long lead times, surging freight and transportation costs, increasingly empty retail shelves, and higher prices at the stores. The problems associated with the shortages will continue to grow as the new wave of virus cases spreads around the globe. We're already witnessing a new round of lockdowns, disruptions in production, and widespread factory shutdowns in major manufacturing countries. And as our issues at ports compound, industry executives are reporting that there's a huge buildup of empty containers in the wrong places right now. And travel and movement restrictions are only aggravating the problem. Meanwhile, most freight carriers only want to set sea with full ships. Thus, as the backlog of empty containers increases, along with the dramatically reduced production from manufacturers around the world, carriers have started to reduce the number of boats that are going to float. In that way, they don't have to pay to operate ships that are not at full capacity. They have also decided to bypass smaller ports and cut down on port space to save on operating costs. Of course, empty containers lying around at ports is bad for business, especially when those containers were supposed to be in China. In the United States, port congestion is still intense. As of Monday, there were 96 cargo ships waiting off the coast of California, 37 outside the port of Savannah, and another 47 during the port of New Jersey. Each one of these cargo ships is carrying millions of containers, and some of them have been waiting to unload since November. So the probability that they will not wait to load empty containers to carry them back to the other side of the ocean is very high. To make things worse, in China, new health restrictions are leading to the partial or total shutdown of many important ports for global trade. The latest disruption was recorded in the port of Ningbo, a city where 500,000 people have been put under stay-at-home mandates, and thousands of companies have suspended operations as local authorities try to contain a new outbreak. Although Beijing is trying to keep reports about this alarming situation under wraps, a recent Bloomberg article and several other trade journals have warned that the slowdowns at the port are going to have wide-ranging consequences for international commerce and are likely to exacerbate delivery delays and shortages all around the world. Last week, a national health official revealed that in the cities of Ningbo, Shaoxing, and Hangzhou, the outbreak was developing at a very fast speed. The three cities accounted for more than 50% of the province's economic output of around 6.46 trillion yuan. That's nearly $1.02 trillion last year. But now thousands of plants have been shuttered and production has collapsed to the lowest level since restrictions started to be put in place back in 2020. Mass shutdowns were recorded in Zhejiang province as well, an area with a large industrial sector that accounts for about 6% of China's gross domestic product. Executives say that the measures have disrupted the production of goods, ranging from batteries to semiconductors to textile dyes and plastics, as an additional 20 companies have shut down operations over the past week. The shutdown of Zhejiang factories will impact on the supply chains of various sectors, especially fiber and textiles, explained Xiaopeng Xing, senior China strategist at ANZ Research. He explains port closures to last for another 40 days, or at least after the Lunar New Year holiday in February. The impact will be similar to what happened in September and October, when power rationing was implemented, he said. A local freight forwarder exposed that delays of shipments are inevitable due to traffic control. Also, some truck drivers trapped in the lockdown area are unable to apply for the passes. Some are reluctant to go to Bailun, and the terminals now deemed as risky areas that can involve quarantine requirement in other cities, he added. Some warehouses and factories have also halted the pickup and delivery of cargo amid the restrictive rules. The impact is worse because we're now in the peak season for exports ahead of the Chinese New Year, he continued. As a result, ocean freight skyrocketed from 121.2% from a month ago, with the cost of a single shipping container rising by a further 16.3% in December. This increase is sparking outrage among shippers who already had to cope with more than a 400% surge in freight rates over the past 2 years. When will it end? Asked Patrick Berglund, CEO of Zenita. Shippers hoping for some much-needed rates relief have been left punch-drunk by another round of hefty blows to bottom-line costs. The continued perfect storm of high demand, maxed-out capacity, port congestion, changing consumer habits, and general supply chain disruption is fueling a rates explosion that, quite frankly, we've never seen the like of. What's more, it's difficult to see a change of course ahead, with the fundamentals stacked very much in favor of the carrier community. In short, shipping companies have never had it so good, while many shippers, unfortunately, are well and truly on the ropes, he described. Some shipping companies and freight forwarders have seen their net profits rise to unprecedented levels as they dealt with increased cargo volumes, and they've benefited from higher freight rates in 2021. Amongst them, Costco Shipping Holdings recorded a profit surge of a staggering 1,651% last year. All in all, revenues rocketed by 117.5% to $33.24 billion across the shipping industry over the past 12 months. On the other hand, millions of businesses worldwide are deeply struggling to pay higher transportation costs to ship their products or get imports delivered. The rate hikes are effectively making it harder for them to stay afloat. On top of all that, road transport prices are also spiking. In the U.S., the shortage of truckers and rising fuel costs are making it significantly more expensive to move goods around the country. Trucks are at a premium right now, said Tracy Levin, controller at M. Co. in Philadelphia. It's a major hindrance for our industry and anyone else that uses trucking, which is basically every industry out there, she said. According to Joel Fearman, president of New York-based Joseph Fearman & Sons, Inc., when companies finally find available truckers, they're having to pay exorbitant fees. He said, it's really a pity when your costs for transportation pretty much is as high as your costs for goods. It's a terrible, terrible thing that this country is experiencing right now. Nothing in the industry has gone up at the same rate as freight has, he continued. As it gets harder and harder to move goods around the planet, companies are bracing for more steep increases in shipping and logistics prices in the months ahead, and much of these higher costs will be absorbed by consumers. With hundreds of cargo ships stuck at ports, warehouses full to the brim with goods, and fewer supply chain workers at their posts, we can expect emptier shelves and many more out-of-stock messages online. The emergence of a new virus variant is only adding more stress to our domestic supply chains, given that some workers are leaving their jobs and others are getting sick. In the food industry, this means trouble for the processing of perishable food items, and most worryingly, it means that more shortages at grocery stores are all but certain. Supermarkets have been scrambling to keep food fully stocked throughout the past 12 months as a result of labor shortfalls in every part of the food system, including farms, manufacturers, and distributors. All of that is helping to fuel wage increases and price surges for consumers, as well as 2020-style food shortages, said Bindia Vakil, chief executive of supply chain consultant Resiliencore. We're already seeing bare shelves and labor shortages due to this new variant, and it's going to exacerbate the issue, she added. Just like 2 years ago, lockdowns are being reinstituted and panic buyers are clearing store shelves of food staples such as canned goods, rice, pasta, flour, and of course toilet paper. Only this time, things are different. Local supermarkets are struggling to get their products into stores because so many staff members have been calling in sick. We are seeing impacts across the whole country, and it's not yet clear how soon the system will come back into balance as we move through the new virus wave, one executive in the food industry said. Similarly, grocery distributor Sparta Nash said it has become harder to get supplies from food manufacturers, especially processed items like cereals and soup. There are signs of declining productivity in the meat sector, which means that more price hikes are coming there. Given that energy prices jumped by 33.3% in December, while gasoline is up by 58.1%, and food prices already rose 31.4% since 2020, inflationary pressures will hit American workers particularly hard in 2022. Even though gross pay has increased 4.8% over the past year, real average hourly earnings accounting for inflation dropped another 2%, according to data released by the Labor Department. In short, people's wages are not keeping up with the sharp increases in the price of consumer goods. Right now, at least $24 billion worth of goods are still stuck outside the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach alone, and that's according to Goldman Sachs estimates, and our domestic supply chain crisis is likely to persist at least through the middle of the year. And that's in the best case scenario. Unfortunately, given the chaos going on a global scale, these problems will stay with us for a long time. So we should all prepare accordingly.